Hello and welcome back to part 3, I think. I'm not sure. Welcome back to another YouTube video from Vintage Automobilia. Today we are back looking at the MGB project. I've had a few requests from people, when are we going to get back into that? Well, as you probably know, it's been a little bit cold and wet recently. As you can see behind me here, it was somewhere around -2 still this morning, and we've still got some ice and snow on the ground. But we're going to have a look at the MG and see what we can do, seeing as it's not raining and we've got a little bit of sunshine. Fortunately, the MGB is in the sunshine at the moment in the yard, so it's nice and warm. The dog thinks the GoPro is a ball and I'm going to throw it for him, but I'm not. Come on. So we've got the bonnet up here on the MGB at the moment. We're still looking at trying to get the engine turning over again. We're going to take the plugs out, spray a little bit of plus gas in there and just lubricate the balls a bit before we go turning it over. No! So you can see all the dirt that's around the plugs there. Some mice or something, rodents of some sort, have been nesting under here in the past. There is shredded bits around. We still need to give the engine bay a good jet wash out, but we're just going to sort these plugs out today. Wire brush at the ready, get some of that dirt out from around them. You don't want any of that going in the balls. Right, so we've just wire brushed those lightly. It still need a bit more. Back with the trusty brake cleaner. Oh dear, I don't want the fan, we want a jet. That's better. And we're just gonna really get rid of all that muck, because I don't want any of that going inside the engine. Back with the plus gas again. Ready to come out. That was nice and easy. Okay, they don't look too bad really. Sort of nice coffee colour, not too black and furred up. Plugs don't look that old really, so they've probably been changed at some point. But given that the last tax disc was 1988, when did it last run? So we're just going to liberally spray some plus gas in there, ready for when we come to turn the engine over. I'm just going to place that back by hand. I won't do it right up at the moment. It's just to make sure we can put the leads back on in the right places. That's a bit more black. Now this is interesting. I've taken the plug out and straight away there is a lot of dirt on the top of that piston there. Don't know where that's come from, but there's a lot of dirt and flaky rust, and I think a little rodent might have been up in there as well. How they've got in there, I don't know, but this might mean that the head's got to come off to clean it out properly. While it's dry, I'm not going to go spraying anything in there. Same again, there's a lot of rubbish on the top of that piston for some reason. Much more than I'd expect to see. One looks okay down there. Okay, so there we are, that's that done. It looks like we might have to pull the cylinder head off of this engine to give it a really good clean out inside. That of course will mean a new head gasket, new manifold gaskets as well, which isn't a bad thing really. It's something that we've done a few times before with these. I think this is the 12th MGB that I've owned now since I was 17. That was when I had my first one, so I'm fairly used to pulling these things apart. So yeah, another little hurdle that we're going to have to sort out. Didn't quite expect that, but I suppose it's been sat for many years. It is to be expected. Okay, let's get the cylinder head off of this car. It's going to be a little bit of work. Got to strip the engine bay down here, remove the air filters, the carbs, the exhaust manifold. We've got to take the thermostat housing off, lots of different bits, pipework, etc. Heater there. Not too bad, it'll be alright. I've got my box here, trusty socket set, brake cleaner, more sockets and coffee mug. Let's go. Okay, a little bit of electrolytic furriness up in the carburetors there. Probably a good thing that we're taking this apart and going this far. You can also see a nice nest down in there. Good spray of penetrating oil on all of these because they're donkey's years old. I don't know when they were last undone, any of these little pipe clips. How many times have you gone to try and undo one of these and it doesn't work? Although that's pretty loose to start with, these drain off pipes. No undoing of those. We are going to replace these fuel pipes as well because they're not in a good state at all. These are a braided covered fuel pipe and they're pretty hard in there, so the rubber's going to be perished and cracked, and we don't want fuel leaking down there all over the exhaust manifold, do we? It's always a good idea as well, if you've got a mobile phone handy, take a photograph of things so you know where everything goes. There we go, one carburetor. And left-hand carburetor. Now these look reasonably clean on the inside, but you can see in there it's quite furred up, and actually that's stuck, that plunger at the moment. So these will go through the parts washer. There we go, just a bit sticky. The oil is a bit thick in there actually, that's too stiff. These will go through the parts. Oh, they're not too bad. We might do a rebuild kit, but we might get away with a good clean-up. It's just where it's sat for years, really. So onto the inlet manifold. Heat shield should now come away, but it's all stuck with the gaskets. That's actually split down there, so we might need a new one. We have to be careful because they do use a heat resistant material on the back. I have no idea what it is, but as you can guess, being 1960s, it probably contains something illegal to use nowadays. Just gonna prise these off. We'll be putting new gaskets on anyway. And away it comes. You're going to leave it attached and pop it over there. So here we are. This is now looking down at the exhaust side of the engine with the carburetors off. You can see the inlet manifold there, and we're just going to spray all these studs with some fluid as well to make sure we can get those undone properly. Right, gently does it now with all the manifold stud nuts. Sometimes it's worth just trying to do them up a little bit before you undo them, just to see if they will move. It's an old trick. These all look in reasonable condition, which is handy. Wouldn't be the first time I've sheared a couple of these in the past on cars. Obviously, there you go, see that's tight. I'm going to just nip it up. There we go. Obviously, over time with the heat in the engine bay and from the manifold and not being undone for a long time, they corrode up and you get too enthusiastic with the sockets. You can just shear the stud instead of undoing the nut. Good car! Spray them a bit more. Let's put all these back on the manifold as well before we lose them. Dear. My tool shelf is not working. Right, here we are. These are all the little special washers and nuts for the manifolds. You'll notice that these convex, one-sided, flat the other. These are the special nuts that are used. That is the outside. That is the inside. You'll be surprised how many times I've found these the wrong way round. One of the last MGs we had wasn't running properly, had a lot of issues. It had been to a classic car company, they'd done the head gasket on it and a few things. They'd actually put the head gasket on the wrong way round. The manifold was put all back together with these the wrong way and it wasn't sealing properly. Always remember where things come off of. Check if you're not sure, get a manual, label everything. Like these, really put them in a bag, label them up so you know what they are. Now these are aluminium, the manifolds. The head and the studs are steel. The exhaust manifold's cast iron. So as you can imagine, it's a little bit furred up and stuck. You get electrolytic action between steel and aluminium, which is, all this furriness is the same sort of electrolytic corrosion. So you get a lot of furred up corrosion built up between parts, and then you find things like this are really difficult to take off. Anyone with a Land Rover will know the problem well. There we are. She goes. And that's the exhaust manifold just pulled back and dropped out of the way. Now this is interesting. I might do this on my phone because I don't think you'll see it on the GoPro. Okay, so central exhaust port here on the head. And if you remember, it was number 2 and 3 when we took the spark plugs out that looked the worst. Look at that. Okay, so we need to get this cleaned out. It's a good thing that we're taking this apart and not trying to start it, I think. I think it was a bit ambitious, but if you look at all this rust and dirt that's dried up and flaked and coming out, the last thing we want to do is try start the car and have any of that go the wrong way. Okay, so definitely a good thing that we're taking this apart. Now the GoPro memory card is now full. I'm going to go inside, grab some lunch, download that video, and we'll be back in a minute to carry on. Hi folks, we are back with the MGB and a slight change of scenery. So we cut off a minute ago because it was about 2:30 getting on for 3 o'clock and I thought I ought to have some lunch today. Well, in the meantime, the phone rang, a delivery arrived, it started raining, and then, of course, it's winter, it went dark. So we had to stop. Now, in the meantime, we've managed to change things around a little bit. We've cleared out a load of junk in the workshop, and we've managed to pull the MGB inside. So we don't have to worry about the rain, which currently is outside at the moment. It's nice and dry. The engine bay here has dried off a little bit, as well as the rest of the car. So this allows us to start looking at all of the muck that's under the bonnet here as well. We can get all that hoovered out and cleaned out now that it's dry, and we're able to carry on with the cylinder head removal. Some new parts have arrived, the cylinder head gasket, a fuel pipe kit, a few other bits and pieces. Not sure where I've put them at the moment, so I'll find those and show you those. The other thing we've done is, you might notice there is a spinner and a hammer here on the wing. We've managed to take the front wheel off. That's over at the garage getting a new tyre fitted, where that one had split and was flat and come off the rim. That'll allow us to move the car around a bit easier. So let's carry on with getting the cylinder head off this car. I really don't think some of these Jubilee clips are going to come undone. Looking at the state of those, they're a little bit rusty. Okay, so we've got the rocker cover off and a few other little ancillaries. We found an issue with the little heater control valve here on the side of the cylinder head. As you can see there from the pictures, it's actually rotted off. The end where the hose connects on has rotten away inside the pipe, and you can see the end of it and a load of furred up white blocking the pipe there. So that needs to be changed. We'll get a new one of those and a new hose as well. We got the thermostat out, you've seen that, a couple of other little bits undone. Now we're going to look at undoing the cylinder head itself. Now in with the car came one of these lovely trusty Haynes manuals. Who doesn't love a Haynes manual? We could look this up online anyway, but the Haynes manual does actually give us the sequence for undoing the cylinder head there. And that's very important. Obviously these nuts need to come off in a certain order off of the studs, and there's going to be a torque setting in here for when we put it back on as well. So next job is going to be removing all these cylinder head nuts around here and lifting the cylinder head away. When this one at the back comes off, we'll be able to take this clip off which holds the heater pipe cable there. It's a very delicate sort of armoured cable there. Goes to a little sender unit there which is currently stuck in the head, so again we might have to get a new one of those. All completely part of the little gauge in the dashboard though, so we would have to replace that in one complete unit. Head is that way around, so I'm going to put the book upside down, make sure I've got the right socket. I'm just going to try and crack them off. That's all I want to do, just a little bit at a time. Keeping an eye on the sequence. So we can now lift the rocker assembly off in one piece and pop that in our rocker cover. Next job, we're going to remove all the push rods here. The other thing that's happened is that the head studs have come out with the nuts on as well. So before we refit, we'll need to take these all apart and reset the studs back into the cylinder block. But I want to make sure they go back in the right places, so we're going to do the little trick of a piece of cardboard, punch holes in it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 for all the push rods, and we're going to do the same and make a note around it and put all these studs in as well. So that's the cylinder head finally lifted off of the block. Never had to do that before, it was a real struggle. Hopefully you didn't see too much of my technique there. I wouldn't recommend it at all. Basically consisted of a crowbar or pry bar underneath some of the outside castings on the head. Definitely not underneath it. We don't want to affect the surface of the block or the head at all. But blocks of wood, some little lumps of lead that I had because they're soft, just as wedges, and gently working the head off of the block. It seems like this was stuck on just this stud here, this one in the middle. For some reason the head didn't want to lift up off of that stud. We'll give the head a good clean up down through all of these holes here where the studs come up through it, just to make sure there's no muck and rust in there. And you can see the amount of muck that's in number 2 and 3 cylinder. This is what I was worried about the other day when we took a look inside the bores through where the spark plug holes are. Now we took those out, we were going to spray in there to just lubricate while we turned the engine over before we attempted to start this car. But it became more and more apparent that there was loads of rubbish inside the inlet manifold and in the cylinders themselves. So this is why we've gone this far and taken the head off. Look at that. So yeah, we definitely didn't want to start this car like this. If I get a screwdriver as well, so you can really see how much there is. That is nasty. Good thing we did this. Head gasket doesn't look too bad really. There's a waterway there that's a little bit bunged up. So we'll clear all these waterways out as well. Now I have found the parts that I mentioned earlier. Here we go, our friends at MGB Hive. We've got a gasket set there. We've got a couple of other little bits and pieces as well. So we've got the fuel pipe kit here. This is the braided lines coming inside the engine bay to the carbs. There's also a badge in there as well because it's missing from the front. So a nice shiny bit to put back on. So this is a pay-end gasket set here, a reasonable quality one. Okay, so we're just balancing this here for a minute. You can see a couple of waterways there that need unblocking. There we go. Needs a really good clean-up, obviously, but doesn't look too drastic. So we'll get this onto the workbench now and give it a really good decoke and clean up. Try and get as much of the old flaky rubbish away as possible. There's a lot of carbon build-up inside these exhaust ports as well, I've just spotted. And these blocked waterways here as well, we'll clean those out. And of course we'll clean out the cylinders. Another job that we weren't able to do on the car was to get this temperature sender out. So now this is off, obviously we've got loads of cable here, it's not a problem. I'm hoping that it's working. We might try and test that actually in a moment and see if it is working. I can heat this up, have a look in the car and see if the temperature gauge has gone up or not. If it's not working, we can just cut that off and we'll sort that when it's on the bench. If it is working, we'll be a bit more gentle about trying to remove it because we'll save it, and it just saves us a little bit of cost on this, seeing as we've had to go this far with it. Okay, so there's the water temperature, the one at the bottom. Get the torch on it. Hopefully you can see that. Let's go and get some heat on that sender and see if that temperature gauge goes up. So there we go, I think that's working. We'll try it again in a minute when it's cooled down, just to make sure we haven't damaged anything there. I haven't got access to hot water here at the moment, and I don't want to get that soaking wet again where we need to do some work on it. So that was the quickest method, just to warm that up. I think I need to warm up a bit. So that's about as far as we can go at the moment with the cylinder head. Next step is to get it over onto the workbench and give it a really good strip down and clean up. But right now I am joined by my friend Henry, not the TV presenter, the vacuum cleaner. Now, little secret, we actually filmed this yesterday and for some reason the footage didn't work. We got about 10 seconds of it and that was it. So I'm refilming this little clip. We're out here with the vacuum cleaner now to start getting the worst of the detritus out of the cylinder block. Before we go any further with anything, we want to clean up the engine bay a bit and stop any risk of further dirt getting deeper into the engine. So here we go, a little bit of footage for you from vacuuming around the engine bay. Unfortunately, I think we've lost the bit we were all waiting for, cleaning up in the cylinder balls there, but you get the general idea. We'll give it a really good clean up and then we will get this out next week and give it a good clean out with the jet wash. Okay, so I think that's us done for the moment, about as far as we can go. We're going to get this head over onto the bench next. You'll see that in next week's video, and we're going to start cleaning this up. We've hoovered in the engine bay, we've got the worst out. If you remember, we still haven't washed this car either, so we are going to be giving this a good steam clean and general clean up, but that's just removed the worst of the rubbish and grit and dirt that's in there, so it's a bit safer and easier to work on now. If we look over the top of the engine now, there's still a bit of muck there, but we can clean that up with a rag and some brake cleaner, but it's got the worst out of these oil ways. The one which I thought was an oil way there, which was blocked, is actually just a blank hole, so all that muck was sitting inside that hole on the gasket. We've got that inner wing and chassis leg cleaned up there. You can see the damp that's still sitting on the chassis leg, so it's a good thing we've cleared that out. Otherwise that would sit there and that could turn to rot over time. So we've got the head sitting on a block of wood here, just in the engine bay still. The main reason it's still here is because of this, which is that cable going to the heater gauge. This piece in here is pretty well fused into the head, so that's not been out for a long time, so we're going to have to take that out with a bit more force. So thanks for watching this week, guys. That's it from me and the MGB. We'll be back next week hopefully with a Workshop Wednesday video. Keep an eye out for our Workshop Wednesday videos. I'm trying to get it up to every week, but at the moment it's around about every other week. So join us next week for an update on the cylinder head gasket replacement and clean up on the MGB. We're going to try and get this thing running as soon as possible, and it may even be up for sale shortly, so keep an eye out. We've got loads of stuff going on here. I might need to move this one on sooner than I really wanted to. I was hoping to keep it for a bit and enjoy it in the summer, but that doesn't look like it's going to happen. So that's it. Thanks for watching. Stay safe. We'll see you next time. Bye.